Hi, this is the first video of the Svelte crash course, and in this video we're going to install Svelte and create a new app. Also, we're going to talk about the many features of this framework and why many developers love this framework and why many people talk about Svelte today. So let's begin. So the first step will be the creation of the new app, as I said, and to do that we have one simple command. So as you can see, I opened my terminal and now I need to type command npx digit svelte.js template svelte app, and that will create a new app in Svelte app folder, and it will be empty Svelte project. So let's hit me enter, and yes, as you can see, this created new Svelte.js empty app. And now we need to go to this folder Svelte app and type npm install, and it will install all dependencies that we need for this Svelte app, and after that we can start development and learning Svelte.js. Okay, so as you can see, process of installation is finished, and that means that we can now start the local server of the app. So to start local server, you need just to type npm run dev, and yeah, as you can see, this is address of the local server. Now we can go to the browser and check this link. So what we see here, this is page created by default by Svelte. As you can see, here is link to Svelte tutorial, and also we have here nothing because this is empty app, as I said. And now let me tell you more about why people love Svelte, why I love Svelte. So yep, Svelte is really easy to use, and soon you're gonna see this in the next lessons. And all code is compiled to vanilla JavaScript. That means that there will be no dependencies, and this which makes your Svelte app really good in performance. You will see, as I said, all simplicity of the Svelte in the next lessons, and there is no some hard syntax, for example, like in Vue.js. And if you need to create some reactivity or props, you just type export prop, export const, and after that you're typing value of your prop. We're gonna talk about basics of the Svelte in the next lesson, but for now I want also to say that Svelte is really good to build a lightweight apps. And if you watch this course, maybe you already know that Svelte have nice popularity in this year, and soon I think the popularity of this framework will raise more and more. And in the next lessons, as I said, we're going to talk about main basics of the Svelte framework. And so that's all for this lesson. Thanks for watching, and we're gonna meet in the next video. Welcome back, and in this video we're going to talk about the main basics of the Svelte, and it will be talk about components in Svelte, how we can use them, import them, how we can create the props in the components, how we can create function methods, how we can use loops and if statements, and also we are going to talk about reactivity and how to create the events and more. So let's begin. Open your project in your code editor and we can start learning Svelte. Okay, so I opened my project in Visual Studio Code, and first let's type npm run dev because I want to start local server of the app. So npm run dev. Okay, and now we can start learning the basics of the Svelte. So let's go to the first component that we have. This is component app.svelte, and this component was created by default by Svelte. And also, before we are going to talk about what we have here, let's go to the extensions because I want to show you some extensions that you can use. So you can use the main. There's a very nice extension named Svelte 3 snippets, or you can also install this Svelte, but it's better to use this Svelte for VS Code. Yeah, so use this Svelte for VS Codes and install these two extensions and start development. Okay, so that's all that I want to say about extensions. Now let's go to the app.svelte. So this component was generated by default by Svelte framework, and as you can see here we have some export let name. This is way how to create a props. So as you can see, this is prop, and let me show how this prop work, because you can see there is also a .js file, and as you can see, a new app interface is created by using app components. And as you can see, that's the way how you can provide in main.js file some data to prop. And as you can see, we created prompt name here, and we're typing here hello world. Okay, and we can delete this. We don't need to use this prop. So first let's delete this prop. About props we're going to talk now, and yeah, also we can delete here. Okay, so first let's talk about components and how they work, how we can create them, how we can provide props and other. So first let's create a new component. Maybe we can name this component, for example, home.svelte. So yeah, home.svelte, and let's create a script section. Inside script section we need to write all code for functions, for props, for variables and other. And let's create a new prop for the home component. So let's name this prop export const. For example, we can type export let, maybe we can type here title, and yeah, so export let title, and it will be component in the home component. Yeah, so I mean this will be prop that we will provide for this home component. So now let's type here h1 and let's show value of this prop, so title of the page. So we can type here, this is, you can see title of this component. Okay, and now the main question, how we can import components. It's simple, you just need to type, for example, import home from that home svelte. So as you can see, we just imported here home, and after that we can start using this component. So for example, we can type like this or like this. So I'm gonna use syntaxes like this, and let me now type value of this title prop that we just created here, and let's type here title of the home page. Okay, so let's type, let's save it, and now let's open our browser to check result. And if you open browser, you can see we have here title of the home page. That means that our prop is working, and yeah, so prop is shown and our home component is imported successfully. Now let's get back to the Visual Studio Code, and now you know how to create a prop. So as you can see, if you want to create a prop, everything that you need to do, you need just to type export. Let's add and type name of the prop. So I'm gonna type here example of prop creation. And also if you save everything, you can see that changes are applied immediately. Okay, and now let's talk about variables. Variables, there is nothing hard to create in creating some variables. So for example, if you want to create a variable by let syntax, you need just to type here let and type name of the variable. For example, I can type here subtitle and default subtitle, and after that I can show value of this variable. So I type subtitle, and that's how it works in Svelte. So if you want to create variables inside component, it's not hard. You just use syntax that you want. It could be var syntax or let syntax to create a new variable in Svelte component. Okay, and you also know how to create Svelte components because I just showed you. So if you want to create a new Svelte component, you type name of the component, and after that you use that Svelte extension, and this is the way how you can import all components that you want. But now let's move on to the next topic. What we can tell about creating new functions, how we can create methods inside components. So this is also easy. So for example, first let's create a new variable named counter, and by default this variable will have value equal 0. Okay, and now let's create a new function named increment counter. Yep, and what this function will do, this will increment value of the counter variable, and we can also return here value of the counter variable. And let's create here new button. So we created a new method, and now we want to use this method when we are clicking on this button. So first I'm gonna type here counter, and I'm gonna show value of the counter variable. And after that I can create a new click event. So as you can see, if you want to create a new event, you type here on, and after that you can choose events that you want. For example, we are going to create it for click, but you can create it, for example, double click and for change. Yeah, so there is many other events that you can use. And we are going to create a new click event and also see which syntaxes we're using here. And after that, I need to type which function I want to call when I am calling this event. So now let's go to the browser. And yeah, if you go to the browser, you can see our changes are applied immediately, as I said. And for example, if I click, as you can see, count is incrementing. That means that's all works. So that's way how you can create functions and also create a new how you can use events. So for example, if this is some click event, you type on click or other. For example, we can also type we can create a new variable here for names is input, and it will be empty string. And if we want to change the value of the this input, first let's create here new input type text. So it will be input type text, and we can type here on change. Yeah, we can create here event variable, and we can type input equals event value. Okay, and we can also type here value of the input variable. So now let's save it, and now let's check result in the browser. Let's go here and let's try to type something inside this input field. So as you can see, typing, and we have some trouble because yeah, I forget to also add here target. So let's get back and I will fix it. So event target value, now it will be fixed. And now let's open browser again. Okay, all is refreshed. Now let's try to type something, and as you can see, the value is updated. So that's one of the ways how you can also work with your with inputs, and how you can use a change event. Okay, and now let's talk about if statements and loops. So for example, let's imagine that you have some variable that can have value of true or false. So for example, let's imagine that we have variable named is show, and this variable have value of true. Okay, and for example, if this value have true value, we want to show some some text. So if you want to use if you want to do that, we need to use as if block. So this is way how you can use if statement in Svelte. So you type this syntax, and after that you type here condition, and this is the way how to end this block. And I can type here is show variable is equal to true. Let's save it and let's go back to the browser. And as you can see, this text is showed here. So that means it all works. And if I try now to change value of this show to false, okay, let's type here false, and let's see what we hear. As you can see that we don't see here this text. So this is the way how we can use if statement. But for example, let's imagine that we want to implement here else, and if you want to implement here else statement, you need just to type else by this syntax. So we're typing here else, and I now can type if show variable is equal to false. So let's save it and let's open browser again. And as you can see, now is show variable is equal to false. So that means that our is show variable have value of false. So that's how we can use if and false. But what if you want to use else if? Yeah, so if you want to use else if, and if you want to use else if, you will need to use this syntax, and after that type here condition. And for example, if is show is equal to, for example, to null. Okay, so now let me type here null, and let's type here is show variable is equal to null. Let's save it. And remember, this way hope you can use else if statement. Now let's open our browser again and let's see result. And as you can see, all works perfect. So now condition is of the else if statement is equal to true, and we can see text is show variable is equal to null. Okay, so that's the way how we can use if statement, else statement, and else if statement. Now let's talk about how we can use loops. So imagine that we have, for example, some posts array, and this post array have some objects with posts, and let's create here first post. This will have ID of 0, and title it will be the first post. And let's create here new field named content of the first post. Okay, and now let's create a second post, and it will have ID of fun. Title it will be Svelte tutorial, and content it will be for example, I don't know, maybe you can type here lorem ipsum. Okay, so let's imagine that we have post array and we want to show all this post by using some loop. So to do that, we can use each block, and let me show you syntax. So it's like a for each, and you can see each, and we can type, we need to type here posts and post. So that's the way how we can use something like a for each in Svelte. So remember the syntax, and now let's show every single post. So let me first show here post title. So I'm typing here post title, and after that I'm typing here post content. So this is like a for each, as you can see, and by using this loop you can get all data from the, you can show all data from the array. So now let's open browser and check result. Okay, and as you can see, all posts are here. So this is the first post, content of the first post, and there is also second post. So yeah, so this is the way how you can use loops in Svelte. And that's all for this lesson. I showed you how you can use loop, how you can use, how you can create the props, how you can create the components, how you can create the methods, and how you can create the events. That's not all, but in the next lessons we're going to talk more about these features. We are going to use all these features. And thanks for watching. We're going to meet in the next video. In the previous lesson, you learned the basics of the Svelte framework. And in this lesson, we're going to start some practice. So we're going to write a simple nodes app where you can create a new nodes, and you can say, you can edit these nodes and also delete these nodes. So let's begin. The first thing that we're going to do is create a new variable where we're going to save all nodes in array, and every node, it will be a separate object, and this object will have ID field, content field, where we're gonna, for example, write the main content of the every node. Here I will create a new node. And let's create this, let's write here some content, lorem ipsum, testing a first node. And we are going also to create a new field named editing to detect which node we are editing. Okay, and also let's type here node ID, it will be 0. Okay, also I want to create a field for new node, so it will be for the new node text field. And maybe that's all for now. Now let's create a new form to create a new node. So let's first type here form, and we can type here new heading, add new node, and let's create here text area field and bind value to node variable, and let's create here new placeholder, type a new node here. Okay, now let's type here maybe input field with type submit, value save. Let's also create a new function named save node, and we are going to use this function to save nodes to the nodes array. And now let's add here submit event, and also prevent default to save new nodes. Okay, and now let's type here new heading, latest nodes, and here we're gonna show each node that we have in nodes array. And so we're going to use if block, so if nodes length more than 0, then we're going to show something. In else condition, we're going just to say there is no any nodes. And here we're going to use each block, so nodes as node, because we want to show every node, and we're going to show every node that we have inside nodes array in separate div. And here I'm going to type p nodes content. I'm going to add here a new line, and also button to delete node, and also maybe let's just type here delete, and second button to edit node. Okay, so maybe that's all for now. Let's see how everything looks now in browser. So let's start the local server of the app, npm run dev. Okay, server started successfully, and that means that we can now go to the browser. Okay, so we are now in browsers, and as you can see, lattice nodes are working. That means that each node is now showed. And yeah, also I want to add here, some border on pixel 0, padding. Yeah. Okay, so now let's add code to saving new node, and this code will be like nodes push new object of node, and we're gonna type here id equals node id plus plus. Now content of the node, it will be node, and editing will be by default false. Next, we need to update nodes array, so we are going to type here nodes equals nodes, and node id equal node id plus plus plus. So we also need to increment this value to save correct IDs of the new nodes. And the last step is to update node variable, and it will be empty. Okay, now we can open browser again, and let's try to add new node. So I'm typing testing a new node, save, and as you can see, node is added, but I see that node variable is not cleared. Okay, so let's see. Maybe we can just leave for now this by default. But there is also another way how we can add new object, new element to the array in Svelte, and you can do this by typing. For example, you just need to type 3 dots nodes and type this object. And if we open browser and try to add new node again, you'll see that everything works fine. So now we need to add new function for delete and edit. For now, let's create a new function to delete, and also we're going to create a new function delete node. And this function will have only one argument, and it will be ID of the nodes that we want to delete. The next step is to use filter functions here. So we are going to type nodes equals nodes filter and node to delete. Now let's use arrow function, node to delete, ID is not equal to ID. And now we can use this function here. So we're going to type here on click delete node, and we're pasting here the first argument, node ID. Okay, we save it, and yeah, we can also delete the styles because I don't want to use this. And now let's open browser again to check result. Okay, so first let's try to create a new node. So test a new node. Let's click on save. As you can see, new node is added, and now let's try to delete the first node. As you can see, everything is deleted, so that means that we have some bug here. So let's get back to the Visual Studio Code. Let's see what goes wrong here. First, maybe I think that this is trouble with node ID variable. So we are going to type here node ID equals node ID plus 1. Okay, and now let's open browser again, and we can also try to refresh, and let's create a new node, test a new node again. And now let's try to delete the first node, and as you can see, we have the same error again. Okay, so I changed incrementation inside save node functions. So here is now node plus 1, and as you can see, the main trouble was that I typed here the wrong name of the node ID variable. So let's fix it. Let's save it now, and let's open browser again, and I think now everything will work fine. So let's create a new node, test, and let's try to delete this node. And as you can see, now everything works fine, and also node variable is clear. So as you can see, now we successfully also implemented delete node function, and we also fixed this trouble with deletion. Okay, now let's create a new function to edit nodes. Okay, before we're gonna do this, let's go to a single node div, and here we're gonna create a if statement. So if node editing equals true, we're going to show a new text area here, and if we're not editing a node, we're going just to show content of the node. So now let's create here text area, bind value node content, and let's type here that we are going to use kpress function event. We're going to provide here, we're going to use here function on key edit, and we are going to provide here event variable and also not variable. So now let's create this new function. So event argument, and the second argument it will be not, as I said. And if event key equals enter, so if we press on enter button, we want to call here finish, maybe yeah, let's finish edit function, and inside this finish edit function, we are going to have only one argument, and it will be the current node that we are editing. So node, and we're going to type here nodes, and we also need to update value of the editing field in this node, so we're going to type here editing false. Okay, nice. And now we need to create a new function to call delete. I mean, not to call delete function, I mean to change value of the node editing field. So we're going to type here edit node, and we are going to also have here one argument node, and we're going to type here editing true, and nodes equals nodes. And now let's go to this edit button, and we're going to call here edit node function. Okay, now let's open browser and let's try to edit this node. So if I click node, as you can see, this is not working. So looks like I forget to add something, and maybe I think I understand. Okay, so now so as you know, we already created here not variable, so that means that we need to change name of this not variable. So for example, not to edit. Okay, we can also name here argument as not to edit, and also we can type here not to edit. And now let's save it. Okay, and now let's open browser. Let's try to edit this node, and this is not working. So maybe we can also open console and see what is wrong. And if I click no edit, this also doesn't work. Okay, so let's open code editor again and finish edit. Let's see. Oh, okay, maybe edit not on click. So as you can see, we're calling here. Okay, I understood. So I forget to type here equal symbol. Now let's open browser again. Okay, and if I click now on edit button, you can see that text area is showed here, and if I typing something here and press enter button, as you can see, all content is changing. Now let's try to create a new node, and let's type here another node. Let's click here save, and let's click here edit, and I'm gonna type here updated node. I press enter button, and as you can see, everything works fine. So in this lesson we practiced everything that we learned in the previous lesson, so that was not hard, but that's not all that I want to show to you, because in the next lessons we're going also to create a separate components for this form, for single node div, and we're gonna make communication between components. So that's all for this lesson. Thanks for watching, and we're going to meet in the next video. In the previous lesson I said that we're going to create a separate components for the form, to create a new node, and also for a single node component. So let's begin, and first we're going to create a component for the single node. So let's copy all this code and let's create a new component here that will be named maybe node.svelte. Okay, and let's type here this template, and now let's open script tag, and here we're going to have only one prop that will be named node, and by pasting this prop we are going to show the current node. And yeah, also we're going to create all these functions, but we're going to call these functions by using dispatcher. What is dispatcher? I'm going to say you soon, but first let's go here and let's import this component now. So import node from .node svelte. But now let's go here and let's type here node equals node, and let's close this component. Let's save it, and also let's run the local server of the app. Okay, and now let's create a separate component for the form. So let's create a new component named node create a node.svelte. let's create a first here empty section with script, and let's grab all this code and pass it here. And as you can see, we need to create here a new variable where we're gonna save data of the current node. So yeah, and also need to create here new event that we're going to call. And I mean for the submit, and this event will be called, and here our app component will react to this event. But first let's create in here a new function, for example say node dispatched. Yeah, and let's type it here. Okay, let's save it. Now let's get back here, and now let's import not create from /dat not create svelte. Okay, now let's paste this component here. Okay, nice. Okay, so now let's talk about events, how we can use them. And first we are going to create a new event for the node creation form. So let's go here, and first we're going to import create event dispatcher from the Svelte, and here below I'm going to create a new dispatcher or dispatch. Yeah, it's better to name dispatch, and we are going to call here create event dispatcher as function. And now we can go to the save node dispatched to this function, and we can call events that we want, and it will be save node dispatched. Okay, and in the second parameter we can paste some data in object. So I'm going to pass a new node, so it will be equal node equals node. And now let me show you how we can work with events. So for example, you type it that if you submit this form, you will call this event that name it save node dispatched. So that means if you go to the app.svelte to the parent component, and if you type here node on, you will see this event. And when you have this event, now you can call functions that you want. And as you can see, we have save node. So now in save node we need only event to get data from this field. So we're going to type here event tail node. So this is the way how you can get this node from this event that was pasted here. Okay, so as you remember, we also have this, that we have some functions also in node.svelte. And first let's create a new function to on key edit. So I think we can also type here, yeah, first let's import also create a event dispatcher from Svelte, and let's create here a new dispatch, and let's go create event dispatcher function. Okay, now let's create a new event that will call on key edit function, but only in the app.svelte in the parent component. So here I'm going to type on key edit. Yeah, so we can call this also on key edit, and we're going to dispatch events that will be named, for example, on key edit dispatch. So remember, this is the way how we can create a new event for the parent component, and after that your parent component can call functions that will, if this event was triggered, and that's the way how we can build a communication between components. Okay, so now let's pass here some data, and it will be, so yeah, first let's type here event and node, and yeah, so I think we can type here event key, enter, and here we can type node. Let's save it, and now let's go here, we can remove this, and we can add here a new event, but in the node component for the single node. And we're going to type here on key edit dispatched. So if we call this event, we are going to call this function on key edit, and we're going to pass here event, and also, yeah, we don't need to pass here anything. We can just type here event, and here we are going to type event detail node. Let's save it, and it will be this variable that we passed here. Okay, now let's create for the delete node and edit node two events. So first let's create a delete node. As you can see, we have node ID, so I'm going to type here ID, and yeah, let's format this by this way. Okay, and now let's type dispatch, and let's type here delete node dispatched. So we're creating now a new event for the another event for the not component, and now let's pass here ID. Now let's go back to the app.svelte, and now we're going to call delete not function when we have fired this event. And as you can see, we have here delete not, but we have one trouble because we need to get here event function to get this event detail. So yeah, so first we get here event variable, I mean, and after that we type here delete not, and we provide here ID that we paste it in the not.svelte. So we paste, so we get this ID here. Okay, let's save it. Okay, and now let's create this last event that we need. This is edit not. So we are going to create here edit not function. We need to create here not variable. Let's format this. Okay, and now we are going to call a new event that will be named edit not dispatched. Edit not dispatched, and we are going to pass here data with nodes that we have in this variable. Okay, and now let's create the last event here. So I mean handle this event here, and we're going to call here edit node, and if we call here edit node, we need to pass here some data. So edit node, as you can see, not to edit, so we can just create here also event, and after that we call here, oh, looks like I did one. Yeah, so let me fix it because I need to clear this. Okay, so I fix it, and now I can call edit node correctly, edit node, and also delete node correctly. So now event detail node. So we are pasting the latest oh, I see. Okay, so we are pasting here also node that we will get from this variable, and after that will call this edit node function. So looks like that's all. Now let's open the browser and check how this works. And if we go to the svelte.app, to the localhost of our app, if we go to the console, you can see that we have one error with details. So looks like this finish edit. So finish edit detail not. Looks like I have one trouble with event detail variable. So let's go back to the Visual Studio Code. Okay, so I think the main trouble is because I not correctly pasted here events. So let's go here, and as you can see, I have on key edit, and we need to pass here event by this way. So we're going to type here event. Now let's save it, and now let's open browser again to check how this works. And as you can see, we have some trouble again. Now let's go back again to the console and detail and defined reading detail. Okay, so I think we can open again browser and we can just comment this. And before we gonna do this, let's type here event. Let's first show what we have in the console. Okay, and now as you can see, everything is rendered, but as you can see, we have one trouble because event is not created only for the onFinish edit. But now let's try to click on edit button, and as you can see here, this is working. So if I type here something and press enter, okay, enter is not working because onFinish edit is not working as you know. But let's try now to create a new node, and as you can see, new node is created, but node is not defined. And let's see, oh, okay, I forget to remove variables that we don't use anymore in the parent component, and this is app.svelte, so we need to remove this. Yep, and now let's get back to the onKEdit. onKEdit that's called now onFinish edit, oh, I mean only finish edit. And yeah, so we are calling here this function, so we need to create here event variable, and after that we are pasting onKEdit variable. Okay, now let's go back to the browser again and let's check results. Let's refresh everything, and as you can see, everything is shown here. So if I click on edit and if I click enter, as you can see, detailed object is here, and that means that everything works. So now let's get back again to the Visual Studio Code, and we can now delete this comment, and let's also delete this console log. Let's save it and let's check again how this works. We can remove this, or I mean refresh, and now let's type something here. So testing, let's click save, and if I click edit and if I click enter, everything is changed. So that means that we built successful communication. Now let's test also delete button, as you can see, this also working. Okay, so now let's go to the not create that svelte, and let's make this not variable clear when we finish it editing. Okay, now let's open browser and let's try to type something in this form. Let's click, and as you can see, now everything works fine, and I can edit this notes, and that means that we created successful communication between these components. And yeah, that's the way how we can create a communication. So you need to use dispatcher, and as you can see, you need to create events, and in the parent component you will need to create a special functions that will handle this event that you created for components. So that's all for this lesson. Thanks for watching, and we're gonna meet in the next video. Hi, in this short video we're going to talk about slots in the Svelte component. So let's begin, and if you're familiar with Vue.js, you maybe already know what is slots and how you can use this in components. So in short words, it's like putting a custom content inside the component. So for example, imagine that you have components that will be named post, and you want to put inside this component some your custom content, and for example it could be some HTML code, for example some title, or you can put here another component, and you want to show this component by putting component content by this way. So now let's try to create here a new component that will be named, for example, header. So header.svelte. Okay, yes, so we will have only template, and for example let me type here heading, or for example I can type here logo, and after that we can type here HR and type slot. This is how you can use slot. And now let's go to the app that's svelte, and now let's imagine that you want to use this header component, and I want to put inside this header some custom content. So for example I'm typing header, and I can type here some menu, for example. Yeah, so item 1, let's just copy this, item 2 and item 3. Yeah, so now let's start local server of the app, and now let's check it in the browser. And if you open the local server of the app, you will see that content that I put inside header component is showed here. So that's the way how you can show your custom content, by putting this content inside some components and using slots. So this is the main feature of the slots in components. You can put your own content by this way. And now let me show you how you can also name slots. So for example, this slot can be named, for example, menu, and we can close this by this way. And let's create another slot name, for example, I don't know, maybe subtitle. Yeah, so subtitle. Now let's save it. Now let's go to the app.svelte, and for example let's imagine that I want to put here, where we have menu, some text where I'm gonna show that there is no any menu. And if I want to choose that I want to put it here in this slot, I'm going to type here slot menu. So I'm typing menu of the slot that I create here. Okay, and let's also add here another line, save it, and now let's put here another slot. So let's imagine that here below this line I want to show some subtitle. So I'm going to type here p slot subtitle, and this is subtitle of my header. Okay, let's save it, and now let's go to the browser. Oh yeah, so okay, so as you can see, this is how this works, but I see that we have some trouble with paragraph tag, because this is not showed here. But as you can see, another menu slot is working. Yeah, so as you can see, slot menu is working. But let's go back to the code editor and let's check why we have some trouble with subtitle. So okay, I understand that's because I type it here menu, not name attribute. So I save it. Now let's go back again to the browser, and as you can see, now everything works fine. So yeah, so that's the main feature of the slots, how you can use them. And by using slots you can make a components composition, and also put your own component from other components inside one component that using this slot. So that's all for this lesson. Thanks for watching, and we're gonna meet in the next video. Hi, and in this lesson we're going to talk about how we can use $sign as reactive statement. This is also one of the main features in Svelte. So let me show you how this works. So for example, let's create a new variable that we're going to change by using input tag. So first let's create a new variable, for example, named name, and let's create a here new input with type of text, and we're gonna bind value to this input by using bind. So bind, and we type bind value. So by typing these attributes, we are going to change value of the name variable. But now let me show you how you can use $sign to make this variable reactive. So for example, I can open reactive statement by this way. So you type here $sign and curly brackets, and for example, I can type here new value of the name variable, and now let's show value of the name variable. So let's type here name. Okay, let's save it. And also don't forget to start local server of the app. And now let's open our local server. And as you can see here, we have our input and also title that we can use $as reactive statement. And let's open console. And as you can see, that new value of the name variable is undefined. Yeah, that's because we created empty variable. So now let's try to type something here. And as you can see, every time when I'm changing value of the name variable, these changes are shown in console. So that's one of the ways how you can use $statement for example, for changing of the name variable. So for example, if I type here name, that will be equal, for example, Mike, I can show alert, you just type it a secret name. Yeah, let's save it, and now let's open our browser again. So everything is refreshed. So for example, if I type Mike, you can see I just got this alert, and if I change this again, and if I type again Mike, that's how you can use reactive statement. For example, if you want to observe some data, and it's not all, because there is another different way how you can use reactive $statement. So for example, let's imagine that you want to change title of the page dynamically, and this is one of the most common examples. So for example, I can type document title, so it will be reactive statement for the document title of the page, and it will be equal to the name variable, so value of the name variable. So let's open our browser again, and as you can see, first we see undefined, and if I type something here, our title of the page is changed. So that's really cool thing that you can use, for example, for the variables that are changing, that you want to track, that you want to see some data. And yeah, this is one of the most common examples. And yeah, so that's all for this lesson. It was really simple, but remember about this feature, because sometime you will need to use this. As I said, as for example, if you want to track some data, for example, you want to track data that user is typing, as I showed it in this example. And yeah, that's all for this video. So thanks for watching, and we're gonna meet in the next video. Hi, and in this short video, I'm gonna show you how you can fetch data from the API in Svelte frameworks. So let's begin. And first, we need to import one function that name it on mount, and you can call this function when you want to call some code before, when component will be mounted. And for example, let's call this function. So let's create here a async function. Yep, okay. And now let's type here fetch function, but let's create here response data, response variable, and let's fetch data from the JSON placeholder. So I'm going to make call to this API, and after that I'm gonna get data by creating new variable, name it data, and all content will be formatted to JSON format. And as you can see, we also need to add here await, because we have an async function. And let's insert console log data. So let's show everything that we will get from the API in our console. Okay, so now let's open browser. Now I am in browser, so let's go to the console. And as you can see, we have here one object. So let's open this object. And as you can see, this is object that we get from this request. So yeah, that's all that you need to know how to fetch data. That's really simple. So you will need to use lifecycle function named on mount, and you can make this function async. This is if you want to call data before all content in components will be rendering. And yep, so that's all that you need to do to make calls to API and fetch data. Okay, so maybe I think we can also create a here new variable, for example, named current to do. And yeah, let's make this empty. And now let's type here current to do equals data. Let's save it. And now let's go to our template. And in this template, after header, let's create a here if statement. So we can type as if block. Okay. And condition, it will be if current to do. Okay, so if current to do, then we're going to show current to do that we have. So let's create here empty div, and let's show title of the current to do, and it will be current to do dot title, and let's put it in the heading 3 tag. Let's save it. Okay, and now let's go to the browser. Let's refresh all this stuff, and as you can see, when I'm refreshing, this request is processed, and as you can see, we fetched data from the JSON placeholder. So yep, this is all that you need to know about fetching data in Svelte. That's really easy, and I really recommend for you to make some practice with this now. So thanks for watching, and we're gonna meet in the next video. Hi, in this video we're going to talk about stores in Svelte.js. So let's begin, and first let's create a new file inside src folder, and this file will be named store.js. And we're going to make a really simple example with store that will work for counter. So we will have only one variable inside our store, and it will be numbers that we want to increment or decrement. So it's really typical and common example with Svelte.js store. So let's begin. The first step, what we are going to do is import writable from Svelte store, and after that I can type here export, and I can define variable that will be constant, that will be named for example count, and after that I need to type default value of this store variable, and it will be 0, so it will be numeric variable. And now we can go to this app.svelte, and here we can import this stuff from the store. So now I'm gonna show you how we can do this. So if you want to work with variables that you created in Svelte.js store, you need just to type here import and type name of the variables that you want to get from the store, and it will be count from store. Okay, and now let's create here a new function that will save a new value to this count variable. So let's type here increment, and let me show you now how we can save new values to this variable. So if you want to save new value to the variables that you get from the store in your application, you need to use update function, and here for example I can type number, and I will use arrow function, and I will type that this value will be changed to number +1 or just number ++. Okay, let's save it. And now we need to show this variable on our page. So to do that, we will need to create here another new variable that will be named, for example, counter value. I know this is really a common example, but let me show you. And we're going to type here, so first it will be empty variable, and after that we're going to type here count, and we are going to use here subscribe function. So you need to use this function if you, for example, want to make that some variable will get value from this variables that you import from the store of your application. So if you want to use subscribe and you want to get the latest value of the count variable, you need to use this function as I said, and after that you open here arrow function, or you can use classic vanilla function without arrow, yep, and you will type here counter value equal value. Okay, value. Okay, and now let's go here and let's show this counter variable here. So counter and counter value. Oh yeah, and let's fix it. Okay, let's save it, and now let me start local server of the app, and now let's go to the browser. If you go to browser, you will see that we have counter and counter is equal to 0. And now we need to create a new button that will increment this value. So let's type here, for example, after counter button, and we're going to type here on click, and we're going to call here increment function that we just created. So let's type here increment value. Okay, let's save it and let's check our result. So let's refresh it. So now let's click on this button, and as you can see, this incrementing. And if I refresh, yes, this is not saving because this is stored just for current session, but that's one of the ways how you can store your data in your Svelte.js application. And you can also use local storage, but you will need to use local storage if you want to store some data for long term. But if you want to store some vanilla data and have a nice structure for this, you can use Svelte.js store. So now let's create a decrement function. So let's get back here and let's just copy increment function and let's name it decrement. And we're gonna update also here value of the number, of the count variable from the store.js. And now let's go to this button, and now let's create another button that will call decrement method that we just created. And now let's type here decrement value. Okay, let's save it, and now let's go back to the browser again. Okay, so as you can see, we have two buttons, and for example, I can click increment and now decrement, and as you can see, value is changed, and this value is saved to the Svelte.js store. So yeah, for example, if you want to store some vanilla data, for example, current posts of the current session or something like this, you can use Svelte store. But if you want to store some data for long term, you can use local storage or cookies and other things. So thanks for watching. That's all for this video, and we're gonna meet in the next video. Welcome back, and in this video we're going to talk what is Svelte Kit and how you can use this to build your Svelte applications. So in the previous lesson I showed you the main features of the Svelte framework, how you can create a simple apps and also reactivity and other. So now let's talk about what is Svelte Kit and how we can use this to build a full stack application. And so as you can see, this is official website kitsvelte.dev. There is main features, so this is fast, this is fun and flexible. So for example, you can also use here server-side rendering or server-side rendering with client. You can read more about this in documentation, but for now let's create a new Svelte application with Svelte Kit, and as you can see, you will need to use this command. So let's copy this command, and now let me open terminal, and we are going to create a new Svelte application with Svelte Kit. Okay, so I opened my terminal, and now let me type this command. So let's name our application, for example, Svelte Kit example. Now let's hit enter, and now let's wait until installation will be complete. So as you can see, you need to install the following packages, create as well. So here we type yes, and now we can choose app template. So for example, you can choose Svelte Kit demo app, or for example, you can use skeleton project or library skeleton project. So we are going to use a skeleton project. This is empty project with Svelte Kit. So let's type here enter, and yes, we can use vanilla JavaScript, for example, or we can use TypeScript syntaxes for more typization, but I'm going to use vanilla JavaScript. So I'm going to choose this, yes, using JavaScript with JSDocs comments. And we can also use here slint, but in this project we can do this without slint. And right here for code formatting, no. Add playwright for browser testing, no. Yeah, also Svelte Kit have a nice tool to test your application. So if you want, you can add this, and you will able to write tests for your code. Okay, so type here no. We can also add here type Vitess for unit testing, but we don't need this. And it's also, now let's go to the Svelte Kit example, and now let's type here npm install. And after that, we're going to type npm run dev to start the local server of the app. And we are going to open the browser to check how this looks. Okay, so as you can see, process of installation is finished. And now I can type npm run dev. So let's type npm run dev, and we can copy this address. And now let's go to the browser and type here this address, and as you can see, welcome to Svelte Kit. So that means it's all working. So now let's open this application in Visual Studio Code, and let's see how we can build pages and how we can work with Svelte Kit. Okay, so as you can see, I opened this project in Visual Studio Code, and as you can see, we have static folder, src folder, packages on svelte config, and here you can config your Svelte application. Also, this application is using YJS, so here you can config your minimization of CSS or JavaScript and others. But now let's get to the src folder, and as you can see, we have also app.t.ts files. This is for TypeScript types that we want to create, and we have the main file named app.html, and here this is body of the Svelte application. So if you use React or Vue.js, you already know that, for example, if you're using Vue.js, you will need to create a div where you're gonna type ID of your application, where you're gonna render all this stuff. Now let's go to the roads folder, and this is the way how you can create roads in Svelte. That can look strange, but this is the main page. So you type page.svelte, and this is home page. And for example, if I want to create the about page, I will need to type here about. So first I need to create the about folder, and after that I need to type here page.svelte, and here I'm gonna type about page. Now let's save it and let's open browser. Yeah. For example, if I now go to the about, you can see I just created about page. So that's the way how we can create new roads in Svelte application that you're using Svelte Kit. So for separate page, you will need to create a folder, and inside this folder you will need to create a plus page.svelte file, and it will be the main template of the page. And also Svelte have layouts, but for now let's talk more about structure of the Svelte Kit application. So as you can see, we have also static folder, and here you can save your media data, for example logos or CSS files and Node models. This is for the libraries. And also, as you can see, we have Svelte Kit, and there is TypeScript config and generation of the app, nodes, and the main folder where we need to work. This is src folder, and Svelte Kit for more Svelte configuration. Okay, so now let's try to create a new page that will have our layout, and let me show you how you can do this with Svelte Kit. So if you want to create a new layout for some page, for example for about page or for the all application, you will need to create in the folder file named plus layout.svelte. Here I'm going to type this is layout of the about page. So that will be layout for the about page, because we created this file inside about folder. So now let's open browser, and what you see is this is layout for the about page, but we don't see content that we created in the page.svelte file that is in about folder. And now the main question, how we can show the main content of the page on the layout file. So to do that, we can try to use slot, for example. Yeah, so we can type slot, and we already talked about slots. And if we open browser, you can see we now see the main content of the about page. So in layout, you set up everything that you need. And for example, in the body of layout, it could be main tag. You just need to type slot where you want to show content of the page that using this layout. And if I want to create a global layout for all pages, I need just to create a plus layout.svelte in the roads file. And for example, I can type here h2 global svelte kit layout, and here I will also type slot. And now let's open browser, and as you can see, our global layout is added. So that's really simple. That's how we can create roads. That's how we can use layouts. And in the next lesson, we are going to talk more about dynamic routing, and we are going to make some examples with Svelte Kit. So thanks for watching, and we're gonna meet in the next video. Welcome back, and in this video, we're going to build a simple example where we're gonna fetch data from the Svelte API. So if you don't know what is Svelte, this is Star Wars API, and you can use this API if you want, for example, test some queries, some requests. For example, you know, we can get information from this movie, for example, Planet Fun, and I make this request, and as you can see, I have information about planet with ID 1 and named Tatooine. And so as I said, we're going to use this API in this lesson to make some data fetching. So now let's go to the Visual Studio Code. Okay, and in the previous lesson we created about page, but for now let's create a here new folder named planet, and inside this planet folder we're going to create another folder with curly brackets named ID, and inside ID folder I'm going to create a page.svelte. So by creating this ID folder we're going to get parameter from the URL with that will be named ID. So here we type name of your URL parameter. And the first question what we got, how we can now get this parameter that we are going to pass in URL. So first let's try to get only page data. So I'm going to type here page, and let's open browser again. As you can see, we have information about our page. So as you can see here we can get params. So params ID1. Okay, it's great. So that's the way how we can get now this ID. So for example, I can type params ID and I can save it in one variable. So it will be named ID equals export params ID. Okay, so as you know, in one of the lessons I showed you how you can work with onMount, and let's import this by this way. So onMount, and you know that you can use this lifecycle hook if you want to mount some to get some data when your component is rendered. So now let's try to make a new request to the Svelte API. So I'm going to type here async, and we are going to get response. And now let's make this request by fetching data. But before we're gonna do this, we need to get API endpoint from the Svelte API. So let's copy this. Now let's go back to the Visual Studio Code. Now let's type here Svelte API planets, and yeah, we can also change this to this type of string, and we can type here ID. And let's type here also async fetch, await fetch, and after that we can get data from this request, and here we need to type await response to JSON. And now let's type here console log data. Okay, let's save it, and let's go back to the browser. Let's go to our local server, and as you can see we get information of this planet that is named Tatooine. And for example, if I go to the planet with ID 2, we now get Alderaan, and for example if I go here and also type here 2, we will get information of Alderaan. So that means that request is successful and all working. So now we can show information of the current planet. So let's create here new variable named planet, and it will be empty variable for now, but we are going to get this information here about this planet. So we're going to type planet equals data, and now let's go to our template. Now let's type here, for example, class planet info, and here will be one heading. And before we're going to show information about our planet, we need to show here as if block. So if planet variable is here, so any type. Okay, I understood. So if length is more than 0, and we can also make this like an empty object, but let's make this just empty array, empty variable I mean. And let's create here new heading that will show title of the current planet that we get from the API. And as you can see, we need to, I don't know why my editor thinks that we're using TypeScript, but let's save it and let's go to the browser. And as you can see, cannot read properties of undefined and file it. Okay, so looks like we have trouble with planet variables. So let's make this as empty array, or I mean empty object, and we can just remove this and any. Okay, so I don't know, but my editor thinks that we are using TypeScript, but let's go back, and as you can see, we now get undefined. So okay, we need to use name parameter, not title, and it will be correct. So let's type here name, and after that we can also type other information about planet. For example, we can type population of the planet, so I can type here population and planet population. Okay, let's save it and open our browser. Now let's go here, and as you can see, first this is undefined, but after request is successful, we will get all information about planet. But that means that we have one trouble with planet object, because we are not checking that this object is empty or not. So now let's fix it. Okay, so one of the ways how we can check that our object variable planet is not empty is to use object case, and here we need to type that's not equal to 0. Yeah, let's remove this, and okay, I think that's all. Now let's open browser and let's try to refresh. And as you can see, first we don't see any content, and after that, when request is successful, we are seeing information about planet. So that means that our condition is working. Okay, now let's try to show other information of the planet. For example, we can also show gravity of the planet. Yeah, so let's type here gravity, and yeah, we can also type here else statement, and we can type here, for example, loading, and maybe we can also show other information of the planet. For example, I don't know. Let's see what we can also show. For example, terrain. Yeah, so let's show information about terrain. So let's type here terrain. Let's save it, and now let's open browser again. Now let's go here, and for example, if I refresh, you can see first we see loading, and after that we see all information about this planet. So for example, if I go now to 3, I will see information about Yawin 4 or 5. Or for example, if I go to planet 1, I see Tatooine, and for example, if 6, so I see Bespin. So that's simple example how you can create pages with dynamic roads, and that was another example with dynamic data fetching, and that's how we can create your some simple pages that will get some information and you can show it. So thanks for watching, and we're gonna meet in the next video. Welcome back, and this is the final video of our course where we're gonna make some conclusion and what did you learn in this crash course. So first you learned about the main basics of this Svelte. You know how to use events, you know how to work with events, how you can use these events, for example, in some input fields or text areas. You know how to use reactivity, you know how to fetch some data, and also you had some small experience with lifecycle hooks, for example, with onMount. That is one of the most common lifecycle hooks that is used in Svelte framework. And also you had a great experience and small experience with Svelte Kit, so that was really short but nice crash course where you learn basic, and I wish you luck to continue your path in using Svelte and learn more about this and start making some real and nice projects that will give you more experience with Svelte. So thanks for watching,